In the heart of a dense forest, surrounded by towering trees and mystical creatures, lay the once peaceful Umutu Kingdom. This kingdom, once celebrated for its vibrant culture and joyous festivals, had fallen into darkness under the rule of a ruthless and merciless king named Obalolu. His reign was marked by tyranny, fear, and bloodshed. His heart was as cold as the darkest winter, his greed unmatched, and his hatred for women and children notorious throughout the land. His cruelty knew no bounds, not even towards his own wives, who lived in constant fear, dreading the sound of his footsteps in the palace corridors. Under his oppressive rule, the people of Umutu suffered greatly. King Obalolu imposed heavy taxes, confiscated their lands, and punished any dissent with the harshest of consequences. His hatred for women was particularly vicious. He saw them as weak and useless, mere possessions to be controlled and discarded. Children, too, were treated with contempt, as if they were pests rather than the future of the kingdom. One day, the depth of King Obalolu's cruelty was displayed when he ordered the execution of the only child of an old widow. The widow's son had been accused of a trivial offence, stealing a few ears of corn from the king's field to feed his starving mother. The boy was dragged before the king, trembling in fear, and without a second thought, Obalolu ordered his guards to strike him down. The old widow's heart shattered as she watched her son's lifeless body crumple to the ground. Her last hope, her only joy, taken away by the monster who sat upon the throne. The widow, whose name was Mama Ajay, was left to mourn alone, her cries echoing through the empty streets. Her pain was unbearable, and her heart was filled with a burning desire for justice, a justice that the kingdom's laws would never grant her. In her grief, she made a decision that would change the fate of Umutu forever. She sought the dark and ancient powers that lay hidden in the shadows of the evil kingdom, a place feared by all, where the most sinister and powerful witches resided. Mama Ajay travelled for days, her feet bleeding, her body frail, yet her resolve unbroken. When she finally arrived at the entrance of the evil kingdom, she was met by the guardians of the witches, creatures of nightmares who questioned her presence. With a voice that echoed with pain and desperation, she told them her story, and the creatures, moved by her sorrow, led her to the heart of the evil kingdom. The witches of the evil kingdom were fearsome to behold, with eyes that glowed like embers and voices that whispered like the wind through the trees. They gathered around Mama Ajay, intrigued by the depth of her pain and her desire for vengeance. "What do you seek, old woman?" they asked in unison, their voices sending shivers down her spine. Mama Ajay stood tall, her eyes burning with the fire of her grief. "I seek justice for my son," she said. "The king who hates women and children must feel the pain he has inflicted upon us. I wish for him to become pregnant and know the suffering he has caused." The witches smiled at each other, a wicked gleam in their eyes. The ground trembled, the sky darkened, and a bolt of lightning split the sky over Umutu. He felt a strange sensation deep within him, a disturbance that unsettled his mind, but he dismissed it as nothing more than an oddity. Months passed, and the people of Umutu noticed a change in their king. King Obalolu, once the embodiment of cruelty and strength, began to appear weak and pale. He was often seen retching in the early mornings, his face drawn and tired. He would clutch his stomach, grimacing in pain, and his appetite vanished. His wives, who had always feared him, watched in stunned silence as the king, the terror of Umutu, became a shadow of his former self. A strange peace settled over the palace, a peace born from the king's suffering. The court physicians were baffled. They tried every remedy, every potion, but nothing eased the king's discomfort. In desperation, King Obalolu summoned seers and shamans from every corner of the kingdom, demanding they find the source of his ailment. The seers, sensing the malevolence in the palace, consulted their powers with great caution. They saw visions of the king, his belly swollen like that of a pregnant woman, his body racked with the pains of childbirth. They were terrified of the vision, but more terrified of the king's wrath. When they gathered before him, their faces were pale and their hands shook. King Obalolu, his eyes blazing with anger and fear, ordered them to speak. "Tell me what you see," he demanded, "or I shall bury you all alive." His voice was a growl, echoing through the great hall. The seers glanced at each other, their fear of the king warring with the terror of the truth. Finally, one of the oldest seers, his voice trembling, spoke. "My king," he said, his eyes fixed on the ground, "the spirits show us that you are with child. The curse of a woman's pain has been laid upon you." A silence fell over the hall, broken only by the king's harsh laughter. He laughed and laughed, a sound that sent chills through those who heard it. "You are all fools," he shouted. "Get out of my sight before I have your heads." The seers, grateful for the chance to escape with their lives, fled the palace, leaving their belongings behind in their haste. Days turned into weeks, and King Obalolu's condition worsened. His stomach swelled, his strength waned, and he could no longer deny the truth. The pain that tore through him was unlike anything he had ever known. In his final hours, King Obalolu lay on his grand bed, his body racked with pain.
"I am sorry, forgive me."
He cried out, begging for mercy, for the pain to end, but there was no one to hear his pleas. The curse had come to pass, and the king who despised women and children now knew their pain more intimately than he could have ever imagined. As the moon rose high in the night sky, a wail echoed through the palace, the cry of a man in his final moments. The once mighty King Obalolu, the terror of Umutu, drew his last breath, his body consumed by the curse he had brought upon himself. The people of Umutu awoke to find their king dead, his face twisted in a final grimace of pain. A strange calm settled over the kingdom, the heavy weight of fear lifting as the news spread. The old widow, Mama Ajay, stood at the edge of the forest, her eyes reflecting the light of the dawn. A small smile played on her lips, her heart at peace for the first time since the death of her son. The end. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, comment, and share.